Hi, everybody, and welcome to this AMA and Ask Me Anything with Jamison Go, Team Captain of SawBlaze, the most recent BattleBots World Champion. Jamison, welcome. Yes, all right.
Yes, champion. It's great to be here. Thanks very much for having me.
I'm just really excited to talk through with you. We actually got questions for this AMA from all sorts of social media. So we put all our social channels, a lot of groups from including BattleBots groups from Facebook. We're super participative, Instagram, Twitter, even LinkedIn. We got some responses through. It's an awesome community. Like it's like our own thing. Like this fighting robot community. And I have some great questions for you. So we're just kind of going to run through and see how they go. Before we jump in, I just want to talk a little bit about, how we know each other. So my name is Greg Paulsen. I'm the Director of Application Engineering at Xometry. And Xometry, we make a lot of parts. We actually have a digital manufacturing platform that makes it real simple for you to click, drag, and upload a file, whether it's a machined part, a water jet, let's say a hammer saw, so the water jet cutout or something like that, 3D printing, and everything in between. But it's just a one-stop place where you can upload files, get pricing, press buy, and get parts made on demand. And we're also a sponsor of Team SawBlaze. So we met you through team sponsorship and have been just rallying for you and the team for this entire season. And it's just been awesome to see the results.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Xometry, like you mentioned, Greg, made our hammer saw blades. So if anyone's about to ask that question, they're made at Xometry with AR 550 material.
Yeah, I love that also. It's something very specific in fighting robots is just these really tough to cut materials, and it makes sense because they have to cut the softer stuff, right? And it's usually really good. We see a lot of water jet, and actually our water jet experts on the team came from fighting robots backgrounds because they also had the same frustration of, hey, I need to source this part and no one can cut it. So they started up their own water jet business, which became part of Xometry over time. So, hey, I just want to jump right into things. Let's talk through this Ask Me Anything, and we'll get going. So the first thing is, I thought this would be good to talk about a little bit about SawBlaze, the bot itself. So first question came through from Anonymous, which is, if a four-wheel drive vertical is the meta, how would you describe SawBlaze?
Let's see. Well, okay. Well, SawBlaze is definitely not a four-wheel drive robot. It's two wheels in the back. I guess different from the four-wheel drive vertical, referring to vertical spinner. So a flywheel that kind of spins in this vertical orientation. Whether the actual geometry of it up to debate whether it's distinguished or not. So that includes the vertical discs, the bars, the drums, all those things. Those vertically spinning flywheels, four-wheel drive. SawBlaze is none of those. It's a two-wheel drive robot with the primary purpose is to do a capture and then overhead attack with our saw blade. And I've heard some people want to consider the blade itself as a vertical spinner, but per the application of the device is drastically different than how you would consider a four-wheel drive vertical spinner. So in those four-wheel drive vertical spinners, they charge up the flywheel to a specified speed, close to full speed, and they use the robot's drivetrain as the method of delivering that flywheel into the opponent. Ours is on a separate actuator and is designed in a specific profile for cutting action instead of this sort of blunt force trauma type device. So it's pretty distinct compared to a four-wheel drive vertical spinner.
Now, I've also heard you use the phrase dustpan, right? So is this a dustpan design, or am I saying that right?
I'd say historically, yes, it's considered a dustpan design. Although you look at it and you'd say it's not very good at collecting dust. Dustpans, of course, flat bottoms. They want to contain things like stuff we use around the house, going like that. This is sort of a BattleBots focused dustpan design. It still gets underneath and it captures, it holds, but it does so by isolating the drivetrain, their wheels, from the floor. And so you can really simplify the geometry a lot instead of needing a flat sheet that is a secondary floor. We instead do it with our forks instead. which performs the isolation much better, and we can make each one of those points more robust. Let's say new wave dustpan.
And new wave dustpan. Well, this is when your specks of dust are actually 250-pound robots, right? So it's a different dust, really, in that game. So a question came from Catherine and Clinton Y. And also this came from Kevin M as well. So do you have a pre-fight ritual or something that you do individually or something as a team that you all do?
Okay, so the serious answer is, we have these checklists. So we made these pre-fight checklists to check over the subsystems of the robot. So we have things like, for the drivetrain, for the weapon system, for the flamethrower, and we got like battery voltage or bolt checks, all those things. And so we go through all those, and then we verify, hey, this robot is ready to fight. And that's the serious side. But we also have a fun, not really superlatives, but those kind of like the more fun ones at the very bottom, which are more team focused. So things like, does Ray have his towel? He spins the towel. Some people have recognized that. I'm sure. Does Ray have his towel? Does Jamison have his Red Bull like ready to go? And then the last one, the very, of course, it's in all caps. It says, "Are we ready?" Of which the answer is always yes, slash and burn, and we're in the tunnel portion when we get all the way down to that. We just yell it so loud you can almost hear it on the other side of the high five seating that they have by the tunnel. But that's basically what we do. I mean, in between there, maybe I'm just like warming up my hands or just getting things moving. Just do a few of these. I have a small robot which I drive around in the pits. It's not made of metal at all, so it's just something to get the eye-hand coordination warmed up. All those fun things. That's how we warm up for a fight.
I like this idea of, I now imagine before the teams are walking out, just a bunch of people like tongue sticking out as they're just fiddling around with a little hex bug or something, just warming up the digits there. And by the way, the next question came from Kevin M, which is, does Tal Guy know he is loved by all?
I don't know if he knows that, so definitely give him a shout out. There's actually 2 Tal guys in the BattleBots universe now. So there's John Mayo, who was on our team last season. He came from Texas A&M, as I understand that's the tradition that they have, and sort of just been like passed down now. Like we have he taught Ray how to do the towel swing as well. It's definitely a skill to get the endurance. There's a technique to get it perfectly level. There's so much involved in spinning this towel.
I'm glad that apprenticeship programs still exist in America. So this is really great to hear. So the next question I have is also from Catherine and Clinton, and I also got something very similar from Julian Z, which is, how do you stay focused in battle? And kind of a follow on is like, what is on your mind during the finals?
How do I stay focused during a fight? It's hard to answer that one, because if I knew the answer, I wouldn't be focused. I don't have a really good answer for that, other than it's just natural with something in a high stakes competitive environment that you really kind of lean into whatever you're doing. I'd say it's just a lot of experience. How you sort of drown out extra noise. I actually to my recollection, I don't remember what the other robots sound like. Like we fought Minotaur twice by now, and I don't remember how loud it is. So
wow.
I don't remember. I just simply do not remember some of those details like that. I think if I did remember, I would probably feel very intimidated. So it's probably for the best.
It's an adrenaline boost, right? You're just in. Yeah.
It's gotta be that Red Bull.
It's a Red Bull.
The Red Bull slogan, Red Bull gives you wings. I mean, I think they should just, nix the G. It's Red Bull gives you win.
Nice. Now, would you say you're competitive, like outside of bots? Like, are you just like a competitive person by nature, or is it just in this zone?
Definitely there's a handful of things, like in anything that you find most passionate about, that you are most passionate about, that you're proud of, you definitely want to do your best. So I kind of pick and choose what I want to be the best at. And since fighting robots is so meaningful to me, that's one that I lean very heavily into. When I was younger, I used to play video games, and I used to do like, competitive and ranked kind of things with my friend. And so we took that seriously as well. I guess I don't do that anymore, so I guess leaning very heavily into robots. But it's nothing terribly cutthroat. It's still the family of BattleBots, that atmosphere. And so it's, you do what you do, you battle in the arena, and then afterwards you smile, you share stories, and you help each other out.
I've heard about that camaraderie in the pits. Like it's just awesome. But I also know that it's still a competitive match, and there's a lot of strategy. So we're talking about the time of, right, the event of, but leading up to that. Great question from Julian Z on that. So what was generally your strategy on fighting off Huge?
So people, this is the first time we fought on BattleBots with SawBlaze and Huge, but it's actually not the first time that I have fought a Huge type robot, which is, now I say that, it kind of ruins the spectacle of it a little bit, but we've never done anything as crazy as what we put on for this fight. This Huge was by far the best Huge that they've ever brought to any competition, in the history of Huge things.
Oh, absolutely.
So, with a robot that's performing as well as it is, it kind of requires special preparation for it. Usually when I fought Huge, and I think has been maybe 4 times now, with Megatron, which is the 30-pound version of SawBlaze, the general strategy is just to get in so close that the blade can't spin up. And so usually with the other Huges, which could maybe you could run away for like a hit or so, the spin up time wasn't nearly as good. It didn't have the same kind of follow through power that BattleBots Huge has been showing all this season. So once you can absorb a few hits, you can really kind of stay underneath there, like horizontal spinners, which have a wide area of attack, but they also can't hide the blade away. So if you just stay in contact with them long enough, then then we have the advantage where we can use our weapon when his blade is stalled out. But the general methodology for fighting Huge, and the attachments, the strategy that we had to implement here definitely seemed like it was out of left field. It was very rocky in the start, but in the end, the strategy held true, and that's what got us the win.
I mean, I gotta say, my heart was pounding during the final match, and you're right. You had these huge, I guess, the HDPE wings up front. These huge plastic kind of wings up front to hold it in place. But it looked like the strategy was, I'm going to block this punch with my face, when it started off. But, when you sound it out, what I just heard makes a lot of sense. But when you first watch it, you're like, oh no, but you wore them down. It really was a fantastic match. That whole championship was some of the best battle belts I've ever seen. Just fantastic fights. Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that. That was probably that there was so much in the arena and outside the arena that went into that fight. It made for, and even the end was awesome too. There's so, like, the words that Jonathan said made that fight, like, beginning to end, just so incredible. Everyone was full of good feelings. It was awesome. But yeah, it was rocky in the beginning. It was about absorbing the hits in the places where we were prepared for. That's something I always tell people when they're designing robots is, you can't armor everything uniformly. If you try to make everything just as durable all around, like the net result is it's that any given place is not great at taking a hit, period. So you often allocate all of your armor towards certain areas where you're more likely to get hit or where you plan on getting hit. And you do your best, even if you can't get an advantage, to make sure to drive such that you get hit in those spots. And so SawBlaze generally follows this methodology pretty rigorously. We're not well armored in anywhere else except for the front. So we just put it all up in the front. And if we make huge hit in the front, that's going to be our best result. Whether the strategy itself pans out or not, we won't get totally decimated.
Well, it's awesome. It was just very skillful driving, and you're absolutely right. There was control there, control and carnage at the same time. So other kind of fantasy fight questions that we had, beyond this was you had a fight with Scorpios, and they had the blade attachment, or the kind of sword attachment to this. So the question was, let's say you were to fight off Scorpios with their hammer saw. What would be your strategy to win this fight? And this came from both Julian and Corin, asked a similar question.
Well, we wouldn't change any of our configuration. So, we prepared for Scorpios in the way that we thought they're going to run. So everything that you saw on the robot was, we're kind of expecting, we need something to blunt an overhead attack if it happens. Best case, we get underneath them, we can control them. We try to avoid lining up perfectly, so we don't have these intersecting arms. I don't think either one of us could touch each other in the really critical spots, like if we just lined up face to face. So, there's going to be a lot of angular maneuvering sort of thing. We prepared like that based on how we expected they would run. We generally try to give our competitors the freedom and space to do what they need to do for preparation. We don't want to be sending people back and forth to go basically spy on people. It feels like such a privacy violation to do that. So on the morning of, when people came, like other teams came by and like, hey, you check out what Scorpios is doing? And we're like, no, what do you mean? And they're telling us they had the box where people were voting.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We're like, okay, that's an interesting move. We didn't believe it until we basically were all in the tent lined up for the fight, and Zach wanted to film this kind of short video where we're counting the vote, but we were just preparing. All right, worst case scenario is going to be a hammer saw. We're going to plan for the hammer saw, and if it's the sword, then same strategy still applies. We don't want to get hit by it in a dangerous spot, but it's probably on average less damaging than the hammer saw. So we could breathe a little more. We got more breathing room, but the strategy wouldn't change otherwise.
Yeah, and that poor sword. That's all I gotta say. I think you guys, did you cut it straight in two, or you cut it almost straight in two there?
Almost straight in two. The second strike, I was trying to cut it in half because I love that. I love the robot which it originally came off of. I mean, I love Scorpios too, but I love Overkill is where the blade actually came from.
Yeah, that's right.
Zach actually flew out to Boston to hand deliver me the blade as a trophy. So it was super awesome. Now it's my sword.
I love that. That's awesome. All right, so I have some more questions. These are SawBlaze bot specific, and this is also where I start, although not too much, but start getting into the weird pseudonyms here. So Chef Boy Arby asks, are there configurations of SawBlaze which we have yet to see?
Ooh,
it's an overkill. Well, I don't want to. Yeah, just overkill sword and everything.
I mean, we could mount it, but there are some that you have not seen yet, in much the same way as we had the huge configuration in some sort of dream world back pocket here. There are other robots which also require special cases, and they have their own they have their own special configuration. I'm not going to reveal all those details now because it's good for our strategic advantage, but you haven't seen everything that SawBlaze can do.
Wow, awesome. I can't wait though. I can't wait to see these matchups. So I have some technical questions, SawBlaze, and just kind of specific, what coding do you all use in your bot? Like coding coding. Yeah.
Yep. So let's see, most of the motor controllers, we usually program them on their GUI. In a very rare case where we have to actually go low level into some of the more open source, the firmware of the controllers, for example, I believe they're all C based. So for example, the Vesks, I'd have to ask my my chief electrical guy, Aaron, about what program language the Vesks use when he programs them. But we did make some changes to the firmware internally. My guess is it would be C.
All right. Another tech spec. What type of motor does SawBlaze use for its drive?
So this year we switched to in-runners. We're using TB Power 5690s, which is longer than what Tantrum uses. I used that to Aaron Hill. I said, my motor's 10 millimeters longer than yours. He's like, oh, you got me. I got to one up him somehow because he beat me before. Yeah, that's really it. We have those mount into our harmonic drive brand planetaries, custom made for our drivetrains for our BattleBots application. So we have this really awesome, fully integrated drive package.
It's awesome. And on that note, what's the next biggest upgrade for SawBlaze? That's both from Brad and Tom.
Next biggest upgrade, we're looking at arm reliability. So there are definitely, we use the arm way more than we have in any BattleBot season 4. So with increased usage, we were able to see increased wear in some of those items. And so there's a variety of issues with that we were addressing throughout the tournament. Basically, when things mechanically broke, as long as it made sense to, you're just continuously welding all of them together so that no longer come apart.
This is actually a question from Walter L on that. So and I may ask this more broadly, but their question was specific, like what fight was the hardest to recover from in terms of repairs to the bot? But yeah, just in general, like how much is repaired and how much is run with it on the next fight?
Part of what we do on Team SawBlaze is kind of prepare for those outcomes. So there may be some cases where you're at your last spares, and then you have to end up doing some sort of on-site rework. In a best case scenario, we swap we swap a spare, because you're not going to get that much time in between to repair all these.
There's a cat.
To repair all these things. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I mean, he likes the parts, so. And what was that? You're not going to have that much time to repair the parts. So if you can swap into a spare, that's the easier solution. So most cases we take damage, we're swapping into the spare. And if it's depending on the level of damage, we can really take our time with it. We can take, a full day or like 2 days looking at, all right, we got this thing, it broke. How did it break? Is there something we can do now to fix it? Or do we need to just really weld everywhere? How good is the fix? What functionality are we going to lose by fixing it in this way? What functionality do we need to retain in the repair that we do? So we weigh all those options together.
It makes sense too. And I had some questions. Actually, I heard a lot about this. So also explain to me what a Brazilian wheel is. But this question came from, again, our friend Chef Boy Arby. I've heard that Brazilian wheels are given to you in the earlier fights regarding abrasion. Excuse me. Let me reset. I've heard of the Brazilian wheels giving you in your earlier fights abrasion and wear. So I'm guessing they're saying like, yeah, you've gotten a lot of wear from these. Has there been any other unexpected issues with changes to the drive setup and any changes to the wheels themselves?
Yeah, so the people were referring to the Brazilian wheels as their vulcanized rubber, solid rubber wheels. And they got the name Brazilian wheels because they're made in Brazil and they're popularized by the Brazilian teams like Minotaur, Black Dragon, and then they've actually made wheels for other teams. And so they're starting to become more and more popular. So more of these teams are starting to use them. They're known for their definitely durability. They're heavier because they're solid rubber versus the foam filled rubber. But they have that durability, and then so there's pros and cons. If you can make them work, they will serve you well, definitely. We switched to them this year from our foam filled tires. We loved the grip and compliance, and how much you can really hit those wheels, the foam filled wheels. But they offered us some challenges. We ended up losing them on some big hits, some big direct hits. So we decided to go to a different route. We wanted to really solidify these on the durability aspect. So we got these new wheels made. They're custom. It's slightly different formulation for increased grip because we are a robot which pushes and controls. The caveat to that is that the floor on it's a paint with a traction additive into it. So when it's brand new, it's very abrasive. Think of it like it's kind of like the grip tape on skateboards, or grip strips on the stairs or something.
Yep.
So you feel those when they're brand new. They're very basically sandpaper, and so with the amount of power that we're putting down on our robot, it was slowly, not slowly, it was quite rapidly abrading the material. So that gave us that was a big caution for us, because actually when we discovered this was during the safety check. We haven't even fought yet, and we're already wearing down the wheels quite a bit. We actually added onto our checklist is to measure the tire diameter to make sure it was within spec for a given fight. We ended up having to create a solution to add a abrasion resistant urethane coating onto it for that to take the wear. So we kind of got like a half and half sort of thing. Obviously, the coating, even with our our rubber primer, is not going to stick as well. It's not going to be a solid rubber piece, but it was a good compromise in that we got the durability of the Brazil rubber, the vulcanized rubber, with the abrasion resistant coating, and that was able to carry us through the rest of the tournament.
And that makes sense. And just in my world of Xometry with materials and when to choose and why, that's something that we talk about urethanes. They're specifically abrasion resistance. And one of the best examples I always tell people about is pool robots. So pool cleaning robots, 24/7, months at a time, are just going around swirling a piece of urethane rubber over extremely abrasive surface, and the rubber's living. And that's like the difference between a urethane usually and something like vulcanized rubber, where it would essentially just wear down the nubs in the same aspect. So yeah, I could definitely see a multi-material or hybridized approach there work really well. So on your so we're talking about these bots, we're talking about these matchups. Some other questions are the what ifs. So are there any bots that SawBlaze is weak against?
Well,
enemies are listening. Yeah.
Depending who you ask, right? I read all sorts of things online. People are saying, oh, they're weak against large diameter vertical spinners. They keep losing to spinners or vertical spinners, and they keep losing to flippers, and none of these are true. We have a very good track record against vertical spinners now, so I don't buy that at all. In flippers, I mean, you gotta look at the cases, right? I think those are overgeneralizations. The thing which gives SawBlaze trouble is people that are lower than SawBlaze, and that's kind of like an obvious answer, but that's what it is. Most fights where we get to use our weapon, we end up winning, and fights where we don't get to use our weapon at all, we end up losing. And those fights are usually they're pretty, as fans will know, it's usually a very like one-sided in most cases. There's some awesome fights where it's really back and forth. Those are my favorite fights, to be honest. But things like, let's say this season, Hydra was basically a sweep for Hydra, because we never got underneath them in a position where we could deliver our weapon. So, we'll give that an example. People are probably citing Uppercut as their prime big diameter vertical spinner.
Yeah,
we never hit them either. So, it's I wouldn't say SawBlaze is a weakness to type. It's a implementation. That's what SawBlaze is weak against.
And I think, like I said, the way that you respond is preparation. I can't say there's enough. The configurations that we've seen on your bot match to match, I mean, they're extremely thoughtful. And it's just really, first off, amazing to make a design that can be configured that way and go fight to fight. But it also shows, there's there's definitely strategy to be at the top of BattleBots there. Speaking of configurations, flamethrowers, man, will it blaze? So will the flamethrower on SawBlaze be upgraded for future seasons? And I hate to say it, but this user, whose name, by the way, is Lay Derp, asks, has it been very effective in a past battle? I love AMAs. I love these names. So let's talk flamethrowers. Yeah.
Okay, flamethrowers. So we did the Will It Blaze series. It works very well on different plastic materials. Even if it is self-extinguishing, it still burns to a crisp very well. I mean, let's not we're fighting 250-pound BattleBots. They're made of metal mostly. In most cases, a flamethrower is going to have a really difficult time on metal. If you have ever done forging or something, and I mean, you need a really strong furnace for this.
Yeah.
How long does it take to get metal to a glowing orange state? So it's actually malleable where you can affect it with a hammer. It takes a long time, and most of these flamethrowers probably not going to get that. Even your best flamethrowers in the sport, got like Gruff, for example, is going to need a lot of time to expose the opponent to that flame. So they're hot. These are hot flamethrowers. But is it going to be effective on most metal robots? It's going to be probably highly situational. It's not to say that they're not ineffective, but they're going to be highly situational. But they are very cool or hot.
I was going to say you like your green. Oh, also my AMA question for you: how is the flame green? How do you make a green blaze? Yeah,
a green blaze. So our flamethrower engineers on the team. So the current method that we're working with right now is we have boric acid that's dissolved in methanol and then injected into the fuel. So when that mixture comes out through the nozzle and is burned, the boric acid turns it a very bright green. We've tried other implementations with dissolved copper sulfate in water, and we spray that as a stream along with the fire, and then that's more of a bluish green kind of thing. Are we going to upgrade the flamethrower for the future seasons? We're experimenting with different ways of achieving that green, for one, because this flamethrower, it's heat and you have an acid. And so the materials that we use in all the systems become pretty challenging. We need corrosion resistant materials across the board. Otherwise we have to clean it out, and cleaning it out it's a pain. We've got flow control orifices, very small diameter. You have to soak everything in acetone, yada yada. It is a pain to maintain the green flamethrower as it is. And another thing that my team is noting is when I drive as fast as I do, I keep putting the fire out.
Oh, that's what fire. Okay,
the fire blows backwards apparently when we try to run it, because SawBlaze is so quick now. So we're experimenting with ways of getting higher air velocity, higher airflow through the front, so we can actually maintain a good fire length.
That's really interesting. And I bet you, because I saw a few comments, I try to condense them into questions about the flamethrower, but I think a lot of people don't understand that's what's happening. They're like, why is he using his flamethrower here? And that actually is an aha moment. So that's really interesting. So
it's either being blown out or it's clogged. One of the two.
Speedo Blazes, will Hyperblaze ever become a real thing? That's from Pro.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Will about that in quite some time, but I have had a chance to drive a Hypershock lately, so it's a lot of fun. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see.
See the exhibition. All right. So if your bot had a theme song, what would it be? That's a question from Musha.
Oh, I don't know. You have any suggestions? I've never ever thought about this at all.
All right. We'll come back to that if you got something there. So I don't know why Final Countdown's in my head, but usually 9 out of 10 moments of my life, Final Countdown's in my head. So that just could be coincidence there. So the other question is, why Red Bull and not Rockstar or Monster? Tom H needs an answer.
You just need a little kick. Nothing too much. I thought the dosing of Red Bull, I mean, I grew up with that, right? Not wanting to grow up with that, but it's something that carried me through my undergraduate when I was doing like the double major sort of thing. So I kind of like, Red Bull, it's familiar. Maybe it's not actually the Red Bull that's giving me energy, it's the memory of it, essence of Red Bull. No, but they come in the small can. So yeah. Not too much. 8.4 ounces, usually not even the full can, just like half of it. Just something like at the right time, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of caffeine, just to get it through. And like the full a nominal canned Monster is 2 servings, a little bit too much for me personally.
So maybe this has actually the answer is Red Bull. This may be the answer Red Bull, but the question from our famous Le Derp asks, how do you make so much time for building robots?
Well, I try not to wear out Red Bull by drinking it out too much outside of competition. So maybe then it's espresso coffee.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make so much time? I mean, it's about you set your own values for yourself. Like, how do you want to spend your time? What do you want to prioritize? It's kind of like trying to design a robot where you have a weight goal, you have 250 pounds max. How do you want to spend those pounds? You have 24 hours in a day. How do you want to spend that? And you just have to prioritize. And if, when it comes definitely time to competition time, the team looks at the task at hand. What do we need to do? And then we're all on board. Like, this is what we need to do. We're ready to jump into it. We're ready to commit, and then we go for it. And if, you can also prevent yourself from getting bottlenecked into long hours by just working ahead of time. There's a lot you can do to spread out the load so you can have a healthy lifestyle, as anyone should.
Yeah.
Don't get burned out over robots. It's very easy to when you're in a big project and deadlines are looming. Spread it out. Plan ahead of time. That's really that's really the key. Well, let's go with that. It's about planning. Just plan it.
All right. So it's easy. Just don't procrastinate. I get that. Easier said than done.
Well, it's not easy to not procrastinate. It's hard, which is why I'm telling you.
Yes.
Don't procrastinate.
All right. So now I got a question for you, which is about fight day here. So Tom H asks, when I watch you, the one of the things that sticks out is your stance. How did you come up to use it, and have you tried any other stances in your career?
Okay. Yes. That's definitely one of the characteristic things that I end up doing. I didn't used to always do that. So people will know, I've tried a variety of different things on how do I want to position myself when I'm actually fighting robots in the arena. And there's a lot of nerves when you're there, right? Trying to stay focused, just trying to be present, trying not to focus on any other thing. I'm gonna fight a match. I'm gonna drive this robot really soon. How do you stay really focused? You find ways of dealing with the anxiety, with the jitters, with the Red Bull. And I ended up determining that it felt comfortable to put it into a motion which I can control. So, I determine my actions, they're up to me. How I want to deal with the energy that I have because of everything that's about to happen, that's up to me. I choose to put it into something that feels comfortable for me, which is a fighting stance, because I used to do martial arts, so all that stuff feels like this is preparedness, this is readiness for me. I've tried a variety of different things, like some people just stand there. It doesn't work for me. My legs start shaking. I used to lean on the walls. That was okay until a robot got thrown at me, and that didn't feel great either. You can still feel it through the walls. The whole box shakes. It's incredible. So this was a good compromise, I think. And plus, people recognize it. I think it's kind of fun for each person on the show to generate their own character, per se. And so I think that's become characteristic for me. And I don't know, I'm having fun with it now. So I'm probably going to keep doing it. It is functional and fun.
Functional and fun. Hey, I was thinking, as you're describing this, it kind of reminds me of if you're playing like any yard games like horseshoes, or you're just throwing darts or something, how you try to keep everything else still other than your arm motion to try to kill variables. And that's what's my thought is, like, I'm just gonna control everything here because these are only variables I care about. So yeah, I like that. So going back, and we have some great questions, and actually some folks who asked AMAs, and they're in like FIRST Robotics or Lego Robotics and STEM. And I had a few of these, so I kind of amalgamated them together. But how did your journey into robot fighting begin? And do you have any pointers for beginner builders? And that the main body of the question for us from Catherine and Clinton, but also got very similar things from Kevin, Corin, and Jer.
That's a really great question. I look at the landscape of robotics and robotics programs there are today, and I often I reflect on, my own experience, my own start onto this. So I mean, the really quick version here is that I got interested into building robots because of BattleBots on Comedy Central. As actually, I was able to watch it thanks to my dad's friend who recorded it on VHS.
Oh, cool.
Sent it home to us and said, "Hey, I think your sons would love to see this. Show it to them." and I became very, very entertained, very hooked with engineering. My dad is also an engineer. My mom's an art teacher, and the combination kind of it melded into this activity, which they were both supportive of. That it's making machines which are functional, but also sort of had this aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
So it kind of like hit all the things. It was a very cool activity to be a part of. My first competitions though, I look back onto it, and if I were thinking the way that I do right now, I would probably be like, man, I can't believe I just kind of went out to some random place to go fight robots. It was like an online listing. I just love building robots. I search for BattleBot stuff all the time. And I found like these folks that are doing small robot competitions. I decided to build one. My parents went with me because I was too young to drive, obviously, but they also probably wanted to make sure I wasn't going to a random place. And it ended up being a really great community. And I've been building robots ever since. Those programs, First Robotics, First Lego League, FTC, there's Vex, there's Best Robotics. Those were either non-existent or in their very infant stages back then. I mean, First Robotics, the FRC challenge, has been around for a long time. I remember seeing that when I was getting into BattleBots. Now it's such a worldwide phenomenon that most schools, there's so many programs.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to jump in and be involved in a robotics program. And that's good things and bad things too. I mean, the barrier to a good robot is definitely very high now. And when it used to be, my first robot was I didn't have many tools. I didn't have much anything. I would just cut out some sheet steel from when I would whatever I could find in dumpsters, like construction sites, just kind of recycle materials. And so I would just like make my own things out of random metal. Some of it was taped together. My first robots were not awesome looking, but they were fun, and I could still win with those. I think these days the landscape would be very difficult to win, but you have to be able to set those goals for yourself. It's not about winning; it's about learning or learning every time how to address those issues. So don't get hung up so much on goal setting as victory as much as goal setting is learning until you get to where you want to be. That's how we operate as well.
That's a fantastic advice. Fantastic advice there. And also, so you say your mother was an artist. Is that where the green and black aesthetic came in? So both Kevin and Corin have said it's amazing. So what brought you to the green and black colorations of your bot?
I think well, I've never asked my mom about her thoughts on it. I know that when she makes signs for us, she came to filming this year. She makes a sign every time, and they're very stylized. They have all sorts of color, and they sort of capture SawBlaze, the essence of it. It's got the fire. It's sort of dynamic. It's edgy in some locations. It's SawBlaze. When I was first thinking about what color schemes could look like, I'm a big fan of subtleties, and then you have defining features which give it sort of the pop to it. And a lot of that is kind of prevalent. That style is capturing a lot of hot rod kind of things, where they have this sort of the flame aesthetic is like solid colors usually, and it is in big contrast to like black paint or something. Some really some color, base color doesn't really shine out too much. So then SawBlaze was like, you can do mostly black, and then the defining features give it a lot of pop, a high contrast lime green to match your Flamethrower. And so that's where it kind of came from,
I could see you lime green freehanding with a pinstripe brush, going hot rod style across the bot. So I have a question again, STEM community. Great question here. So how would you most recommend promoting robotics in schools, communities? And this is also comes from, so Hitch has asked a few questions, and yeah, they're from FTC League as well as Lego League.
Promoting robotics in schools, communities. I think these days, what I see around, I think we're doing a really good job of making technology look really cool. And I got to say, that's probably the biggest way to promote it. Is like, in all variety of things you can see in the world. If we make things look really cool and attractive, that's definitely enough for folks to want to they want to get more involved. They want to understand, especially young children, getting them started at an early age, super important. It's like career developing, right? You start at an early age, and it just kind of goes from there. From my experience, that's how I felt. And reflecting back on what got me into it, it was definitely the ability to be creative and the fact that it looked like such a cool sport to be a part of. There's so many different designs, so many different personalities, and the arena was just, this is so cool. So making it seem attractive, I think, is going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, I've never heard a bad thing about the community. Just, I mean, it sounds like the community across robots, whether it's you're integrated in STEM and up to BattleBots, is just very, very wholesome. Everybody's there to help and nurture each other, problem solve with each other. It's fantastic to hear. So you're going from, like, what brought you into a BattleBots? So like the like episode stuff. So you were fighting robots. You just know your goal was to get into BattleBots competition. What did that transition look like, or that leap of faith?
I mean, that was a long time goal. Since I was inspired by the show, right? Inspiration.
Mhm.
I saw the show. The big prize was the giant nut. So somewhere pie in the sky dream is to win that. Of course, the show went off air after the 5th season of Comedy Central. That became a little bit more of a well, it'd be really hard to get the trophy if the competition didn't exist. But I still loved the sport for what it was, for the community, for just wanting to learn how to build things better. Build better things, build things better. They kind of go hand in hand. I myself was studying engineering as a result of seeing BattleBots, and I knew that whatever I was building, whatever skills I was practicing, would make me better at my career as well. Like, I can take what I learn and apply it, and then also go back and forth between it. And I think that BattleBots is one of those sports that grows with you as a career, as an engineer. You're always learning. You can always do better. And so, shoot, what's the
I know it's you're on it, man. Yeah, getting to
what was it always my main goal?
Yeah,
so
getting
when
BattleBots.
BattleBots came back on air, I said, definitely, internally, I said, I need to find a way to be a part of this. It would be it was my dream to be a part of it again. And so when an opportunity comes like this, you got to do what you can to make it. And I think a lot of us felt that way as well. So I was at MIT at the time, and of course Charles Guan was there as well. He was an instructor at one of the research labs, and he got a call, and he put together a team with the folks that kind of in the area that knew what they were doing. So we made the first season overhaul as kind of like this super MIT mashup. A lot of powerful voices in the community to build this robot together. And so with the next season, we had the chance to go build our own designs. We took that opportunity to branch out. So just how we usually do it. So
That's awesome. So talking about these competitions, Julian asked, like, of all the bot competitions you've seen, what's been your most favorite fight?
Most favorite fight for all competitions
Of all time.
not just BattleBot ones.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it could be SawBlaze versus Huge if you want to just go that way, but yeah.
I mean, I love the Minotaur fight, the second one. That one, as I was saying earlier, I love the fights which are back and forth. I look at the entertainment value just as much as the value of the win. The Huge fight was amazing because, I mean, we had the preparation up front, and it was the championship fight. But in terms of the back and forth, I thought that the kind of graph for the Huge SawBlaze fight, it went, this is 50-50, this is Huge, this is us. It went like Huge, and then it like turned, and maybe for halfway through. The Minotaur one was so back and forth all the time. The advantage was never fully clear. Even at the last seconds where we looked like we were down our weapon system, we were still pushing them around. We're still controlling them, and it became definitive by the end when they burned out. So that was like a perfect match for showing people what BattleBots is all about. Perfect match for our performance or their performance. It could be the new blacksmith minotaur of this era, right?
And the hit. I mean, I think that's one of those things when you watch the Minotaur fight. They, of course, we're watching this edited, right? I'm watching this, unedited, but through, and they have your pre-recording. Of course, they probably just pick, perfect clips, but you're just like, we know where the battery is, and we're gonna hit their battery. Like that's our goal, is control and hit the battery. And then you're watching and you're anticipating, like, when are they gonna get it? And like you're going back and forth, and then you get control and you make a hit. And I remember, I think on the commentators were like, "Did you hit the battery?" And then smoke, and you're like, "Oh!" And you just I feel like there are folks that are watching that just jumped out of their seats. And you're absolutely right. Entertainment value, 150%. Like it was just up there, but also skill wise, I mean, two of the best drivers out there. There was no loss of skill. It was just a completely wonderful fight. And again, congratulations on that. I'm a fan, if you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm also a fan of Minotaur. Minotaur, by the way, is also sponsored by Xometry, and also a fan, like, actually those big beefy, it's like basically the sides that are billet aluminum, and those are actually machined parts from Xometry, like these giant chunks of aluminum there. So that's great. And at the end of this, I mean, how did you feel? What were those feelings like when you and your team saw the banner drop, when that banner was presented?
We actually haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
We haven't seen our banner yet, because
it was the next season.
Whenever season, they revealed the champion from the previous season. So Tantrum got to see their banner. We haven't seen our banner yet. We're hoping we're hoping they capture whoever the artist is, capture their good side. We don't do well when we're like dead center. We do a little, like, turn the sides, you can see.
You need an isometric, yeah.
It's sort of isometric sort of view. So
Kevin M will have to wait for that answer then on the AMA. So I got a few more questions left, and thank you so much. This has been super great. So questions: do your friends call you JMO, or do your enemies call you JMO? If not, what do your enemies call you? Yeah.
I think the people, they want to choose what name to call me. JMO is a nickname I made for myself, just because I think it made it easier for folks to memorize how to say it. Maybe these days it's not that hard to remember anymore. Jamison, the spelling apparently is very difficult. I see a lot of variations on that, and that's fine. I know what they mean. But people call me. I don't know if I have any enemies per se. My competitors, they definitely alternate between Jamison, JMO. It's all the same. It's all good to me. So yeah, either one. My parents would probably prefer Jamison. So if you want to choose one, you don't know me that well, you can use Jamison, and then that's fine too. They'll be happy.
So what keeps you busy outside of bot building or bot fighting?
Oh, probably my work. I mean, I'm literally at work right now. So after this, I'll go back to work, designing more really awesome equipment that will change the world.
That's awesome. And on that's actually leading up to second to last question I got for you. So have you been able to leverage your BattleBots experience in your career?
Absolutely. Like I was saying, fighting robots is one of those activities, those sports, which, if you're in an engineering career path, certainly everything you learn in there can be used in your career, and everything in your career can be used in BattleBots as well. I think that those two, they lend each other skill sets and experiences. Half of what makes a good schedule, certainly for work projects, is kind of being able to project. And unfortunately, it's not one of those things where someone can just tell you, hey, it takes this long to do X, Y, Z. You gotta understand the task. You gotta probably make a few mistakes, and then you can really start to schedule out, when do I actually need to start designing this thing? How new is it to us? When, and that, how does that change where we start? Like, oh, brand new thing we've never done before. Let's move it really far in advance, and then we'll give, like, oh, here's our deadline for shipping. So let's do assembly to this, schedule setting. That's what we do when BattleBot says we're gonna film here. we work backwards, and then we map it all out and we say, these are our targets. Of course, they're not hard targets. If we don't finish prototyping by this date, it's not the end of the world, but that's when we should start lighting the fire underneath us to work a little bit faster to recover that schedule, so that we're not trying to learn up until we ship the robot. So that helps SawBlaze become really, really good. Also, the things that we probably don't appreciate as much as robot builders is sort of this documentation side. I mean, I used to do a lot of documenting my builds, but another way of documenting them in a more professional setting is like drawing packages, assemblies, and things like that. Stuff that we can use when I want to go to a shop and say, hey, I need this to be made. Maybe I'm taking it to Xometry. I have a drawing, a step file. I need to be made this well. I can hand it to anybody. And then it can be made to my specifications. So that, if I'm making it myself, you can make a lot of mistakes. You can like, oh, I need to take off a little bit more here and there. That's great from a personal side, but when you want to jump to your engineering career, you need to learn all these skills. So that's BattleBots is great practice for all of that. And
also, thank you, by the way, as someone who makes a lot of parts and works on a lot of projects. There's something to be said about properly documented technical drawing. It's like a love letter to your manufacturer. It gives you inspection requirements, gives you critical criteria, and it gives you assurance across the network. And we work, a network over 10,000 professional manufacturers. And one of the keys to a consistent experience from a design side is a solid data package. And that's yes, thank you for that. That is something actually I write and we talk about a heck of a lot here at Xometry. So my last question. So first off, it's also an explanation. Congrats on winning the giant nut. I mean, just congratulations. It's been spectacular to watch you through the season, and you have so many fans, interested and responding to this AMA today, as well as just across, across the BattleBots and fighting robots empire, if you will. So the question is, what's next? What's next for Team SawBlaze?
What's next for Team SawBlaze? Well, we're perfectionists in a way. We want to see the banner that's revealed. So it's almost a given that SawBlaze has to come back for season 8. So knowing that, we are already looking at trying to fix the areas that we can improve. We make a big list of, things that can be done better, and we make those our highlights. We're always looking for the ways to improve ourselves, our team, our robot, and that's how you do better. And any failures that you have, you don't look at them as failures, you look at them as opportunities to learn. And so we've got a lot, even though we won the giant nut, we still have lots of ways that we can learn. And so that's what we're going to do. We've already started working on some of them. There's still more that we're developing, testing, modeling, and that's what's going to be new for SawBlaze. We didn't have an undefeated regular season, so maybe we'll do that. And there's still the Golden Bolt tournament. We'll see how that goes. But we'd love to have one of those as well. Maybe that's what's next for SawBlaze.
Maybe that's what's next. Jamison, thank you so much for attending the AMA. Also want to thank everybody who contributed to this AMA. Just what an awesome community. And from Xometry to your team, we just really appreciate the collaboration that we've been able to have throughout this event.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Thanks for supporting us through the entire season, and just happy to see all these questions from all the BattleBots fans all over the world, really, right?